Dragon Age Inquisition was rated M for mature by the ESRB and contains blood, intense violence, nudity, sexual content, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, my name is Amaronith and I play games for the internet, and today we're playing Dragon Age Inquisition. It's time for another Codex reading episode, so let's get right into it, starting with characters. Sera. Updated. This report by Josephine has been defaced numerous times in a different hand. On Sera, Red Jenny, and Bellissima Lady Potts von Knucklefronts. It falls to me to comment on this Red Jenny, for as a creature of the court I must have seen the effect of her actions, although I cannot be certain. Does that make them effective or ineffective? What I know is that she has vexed city's guardsmen across Thedas and always escaped. Accessing all available records, it seems clear that there have been multiple embodiments of the name, often at the same time. The limitations of communication are such that this is impossible to verify in the moment. A crude drawing of a guard with her breeches at her ankles. The severity of the attributed actions vary wildly, from petty to outright vicious. While official reports label these actions unfair, I have knowledge of many named as victims, and several are of suspect character. Sera would call them something altogether untoward. Yes, mum. Shit's the lot of 'em. There are tales of Red Jenny targeting criminals, slavers, and even assassins' guilds. The benefit of having a local is that they are invested in regional concerns, although this obviously varies. I can discern no protocol. Don't need a title to be awful and deserve it. So who is our Red Jenny? She has been amusing herself in Val Royeaux for some time, although it is clear from her accent that she is deeply Ferelden. She met with outright laughter my inquiry as to whether she had any special elven concerns that I could address. I have conferred with Liliana about the danger of this group, and our estimation is that this incarnation of Red Jenny is, at least, a good distraction. Or the scary one cares. Addendum. Denerim. Sera's claim to have lived in Denerim cannot be verified, but seems likely. The alienage there was neither stable nor secure. Many residents of the city fled the region following the Blight. Given her nature, Val Royeaux would have seemed rife with targets. Denerim has more than its share of suspect nobility, but most were rallied against a common enemy thanks to the efforts of the hero of Ferelden. Forced to, more like. Shits and double shits. Addendum. Lady Amald. I attempted to find information about this Lady Amald Sera mentioned. It is difficult given how many noble houses were all but erased during the Blight. Amald seems a recent name rather than established nobility. Perhaps the title of Lady was a negotiated honorific due to mercantile holdings. Didn't say she didn't work hard. Said she was a bitch. Creatures. Cretahl. Long before the first Tigers, legend speaks of the Cretahl, horned war beasts with eyes like molten silver. Possessing the might of 3 Brontos, the Cretahl charged their prey, using a rock-hard frill to smash their targets to a bloody pulp. The Cretahl held down their prey with 4 strong legs, quickly stripping their victims' flesh from the bone with powerful jaws. Despite their brutality, some Cretahl were domesticated as fierce weapons in battle. What happened to these savage creatures is unknown. Some people claim the Darkspawn wiped them out, others say they never existed. Those with more imagination speculate that these magnificent creatures retreated deep within the earth in search of the deadliest prey. Groups. Sha-Brytol. A torn page from Shaper Valta's handwritten journal was discovered among trade correspondence delivered to Skyhold this morning. The Inquisitor's courier could not recall how or when it came into her possession. Ren's murderers hide in the shadows, watching me from a safe distance. The Sha-Brytol saw the Titan favor me with the gift of shaping stone. I am more powerful than they will ever be. They fear me. They love me. They understand I am a part of the Titan they defend, but they don't realize it doesn't need their protection. It never has. Whoever these dwarves once were, whatever motives drove them to remain here, now they are only lost. I don't sleep anymore, but sometimes I stop to listen. Yesterday, or was it an hour ago, I became aware of a Sha-Brytol who had crept close enough to leave an offering, an empty suit of their armor. Did they think I would wear it? Lead them? All their gift did was summon the image of my dead friend as I returned him to the stone. I left the armor where it lay. Tomorrow, no, it was just a moment ago, I enter one of their towers. I sense how rapidly they flee my approach. They think I come to destroy them, but I don't have to get close to do that. I'm just curious to see how they live. Do they live? The tower offers no answers. It is quiet and spare, reminding me of descriptions of the topsiders' temples to their gods. Are the towers temples? Fortresses? Both, perhaps. Only one chamber provided anything of interest to me. A domed, circular courtyard held a pool of the Titan's blood at its center. Empty suits of armor sat neatly in a circle around the pool. Is this where the Sha-Brytol come to be entombed in their metal skins? What smith makes this armor, and where does it come from? My lost kin are hiding something. They have a tag somewhere. I have no interest in finding that citadel of Sha-Brytol, but another might. History. Chronicles of a Forgotten War. Commander Othon told us to move out. He didn't give details, only that there'd been attacks north of Cretahl, and the Crown was sending reinforcements. Father grabbed our axes, and we were off. I was a boy then, puffed up from a few victories in the provings. I didn't know what was going to be taken from me, but I would find out. The journey to Cretahl was long and tiresome. Bored warriors make for poor drunks at camp. Father and I kept to ourselves, though I admit I longed to lose myself in a pint of ale, if only to have something to do other than sharpen my axe. From Chronicles of a Forgotten War, author unknown. A day after leaving Cretahl, we noticed a change. The deep roads were practically abandoned. Torches would suddenly go out, leaving us to stumble through the dark and trip over discarded caravans. Then came the attacks, hard and fast. Father was one of the first. We heard breathing, slow and heavy, from a creature much larger than us. Father held out his arm and grabbed the front of my armor to make me stop. I saw its shadow move, darker than the darkness, and then my body jerked forward. It left Father's arm hanging, still grasping my chest plate. From Chronicles of a Forgotten War, author unknown. The Scaled Ones. I can't remember who came up with the name, but it stuck. Drog had been lighting a torch when one attacked, and we finally caught a glimpse of something other than shadows. In the flame's light, we saw a man's body like those of the Imperium humans, but covered in scales. It wore armor and even had a dagger hanging from its hip. Its jaws wrapped around Drog's face and twisted. The crunch of his neck breaking seemed to echo down the deep roads. The torch fell from his hands, and we lashed out. I swung my axe with all my might, but it bounced off the Scaled One's armor, the impact ricocheting up my arms. It let out a roar, then more attacked. From the light of the fallen torch, I guessed there were a score of them, all wearing armor and carrying weapons as sharp as their teeth and talons. The one that killed Drog barked orders I didn't understand. I kept swinging. Othon, the best of us, made the first kill by splitting a Scaled One's head open. There was a strange silence, as if after an upset in the proving grounds, and it hit me that these beasts were not used to seeing one of their own die. Drog's killer growled and stamped out the torch. The Scaled Ones retreated into darkness. From Chronicles of a Forgotten War, author unknown. Our bodies screamed for rest, but Othon pushed forward. Now that he'd seen the enemy, our commander wanted to use the Scaled Ones' tactics against them. Go on the offensive. He left guards with the wounded and led the rest of the company to scout ahead for where the Scaled Ones were hiding. After marching in darkness for days, we finally saw an amber light flickering in the distance. Othon signaled everyone to hold and waved me forward with him. We proceeded slowly, wary of possible guards. Othon nodded toward an overlook. I climbed with bated breath, terrified that the Scaled Ones would hear the echo of my boots scraping against the stone. I felt little relief when we reached the top. From Chronicles of a Forgotten War, author unknown. The Scaled Ones had set up camp at an intersection in the deep roads. In the center was a golden altar fashioned in the shape of fire. A chill swept through me. On the tip of each flame hung the corpses of those we'd lost, including Father and Droog. They'd been drained of blood, leaving only bone wrapped in thin gray skin. A robed Scaled One stood before the altar. Its voice was different from the others, softer, almost feminine. It chanted and raised a basin of blood toward the altar. The other Scaled Ones bowed low. The robed Scaled One produced fire from its palm and mouth and ignited the blood. Othon grabbed my forearm and motioned for us to climb down. We returned to the rest of the company, where he relayed what we had witnessed. We would rest for an hour, regain our strength, and strike. The memory of Father's sagging, emptied face kept me awake. The hour passed slowly, but it did pass. Othon led us down the path to the overlook. I readied my axe for blood and steeled myself for the sight of the altar. But it wasn't there. The camp, Father and Droog, the Scaled Ones, all gone. Only the basin remained, charred around the edges. From Chronicles of a Forgotten War, author unknown. Old Elven Writing. This Elven writing found in the Arbor Wilds is so old as to be incomprehensible. The Guardian. Josephine found a torn handwritten journal page tucked into papers on her desk and immediately delivered it to the Inquisitor. The page was obviously written by Shaper Volta, but the Inquisition's ambassador cannot explain its appearance in Skyhold. I don't remember most of what happened at the end. Inquisitor Llewellyn fought to stop the earthquakes, and we raced together through a place more beautiful than anything I had ever seen. How could it be the source of all that devastation confused me. It still does. I felt Ren's absence with every step as we ran to the great circle. Immense lyrium veins pulsed with life, and their power flowed into the circle. Something grew from it. A towering being born from the stone rose to stop us. The Guardian. It lashed out, and I fell into a warm light's embrace. I thought I was returning to the stone. Perhaps I did. The light receded as I awoke in paradise. The Guardian lay shattered. The Inquisitor stood triumphant. A victory, but I could not take any joy in it. The Guardian had come to defend the Titan, protect the stone from being weakened. It tried to kill the Inquisitor, but to me it only offered gifts. I hoped to use them well, and someday understand why I was chosen to receive them. Titans. Harriet made an odd discovery in Skyhold's Undercroft, a page of handwritten text torn from Shaper Volta's personal journal. The Titans are real. I knew it the moment I unearthed that ancient text. Ren scoffed at the words I read. I couldn't blame him, even as I felt the truth settle on me like a warm cloak. Much of our history has been lost, and the wall of memories goes back only so far. There had to be more to the story of our people, and I finally found one of those lost chapters. It's impossible to describe in words how truly vast a Titan is. The one I met is so large you can only glimpse parts of it. I had wandered inside its body for who knows how long without even realizing it. I've heard tales of dragons and giants on the surface, but descriptions of their size do not compare to the Titans. Its blood now flows through me, and its song fills the gaps in our history. I close my eyes and see glimpses of the world that was, before everything changed and the Dwarven race broke in two. Something caused the Titans to fall, and the fate of my people fell with them. The Titan wants me to know. No, more than that, it wants me to understand. There is a loneliness to its song. Letters and Notes. Folded Note. Captain Lowen, I don't want grumbling in the lower ranks that our Lord Corypheus handpicked Grey Wardens to be part of his honor guard over his Templars. Our charge is not to understand his will, it is only to obey it. Besides, Our master's still sore he lost all but a few dozen enslaved Grey Wardens to the Inquisitor at Adamant. If your soldiers are smart, they'll keep quiet about it. Lieutenant Keldon. Kolg's journal. A torn page from a journal. Stone-blind Kolg, they chanted. Their grubby fingers pushed my face into the ground, scraped the flesh from my ear, spilled blood. 2 thumbs made black spots in my vision. Their voices were loud, so loud, but I hear her the loudest. The stone. When they left me in the quiet dark, she remained. Her soft lullaby told me of a way I could return, a song of my own. Filled with mother's love, I gathered singing stone by hand. They said it would poison me, but mother would never do that, not to her son. Within the melody are secrets meant only for me. A blood-spattered page from a journal. The song is soft, but hard to crack. I hear the words, I can even taste them, but I cannot say them. Maybe mother needs me to remove my teeth. A crumpled page from a journal. Mother holds me when I sleep, warm, so warm. Her rhythm flows through my throat, burning until the miners and their fat, cruel hands are a distant memory. Kolg is a memory. I am the sun. The words come in waves. I will drown in them for her. The last entry in a dirt-stained journal with several pages missing. Mother's song leaks out of me. Liquid fire spills from my eyes, mouth, and ears. I give her everything and become a verse in her chorus. I am finally complete. It was never about the words, only the song. Official-looking letter. To all captains of the Red Templars. We are not stopping to deal with these elven fanatics. Press forward, post more guards, and handle the ambushes as they come. Finding the Temple of Mythal is our first and only task. Once I become the vessel, our master can finally claim the power waiting for him. No elves, no city, no nation will be a match for our living god. This is the day we've bled for. The Inquisition and our legions are snapping at our heels, and you've sacrificed more than anyone should ask. But if we fall here, the deaths of your brothers and sisters meant nothing. I won't let that happen. I know none of you will either. For the glory of the Elder One, General Samson. The Eternal Battle. Darkspawn. Unless there's a blight, surfacers reserve the Darkspawn for cautionary religious lessons and bedtime stories. That is a luxury Orzammar cannot afford. Without the Legion of the Dead's continuous efforts, our great Tig would have undoubtedly been lost to the Blighters long ago. Still, the question remains, where did these monsters come from? It's a given that the Chantry beliefs about the Darkspawn origins are nonsense. They were not cast down from a fabled city, they crawled up from the deep recesses of the earth. We know now that Darkspawn come from broodmothers. Perhaps at the very heart of our world sits a queen, the first mother. Instead of focusing on the children, we should target the broodmothers and ensure that future reinforcements will never be born. Written in the margins are 2 sets of handwriting, presumably from Lieutenant Wren and Shaper Volta. Chopping off their heads should do the trick. Write in one of my books again, and it's your head at risk, Lieutenant. When it's quiet. Dearest Iora, this will never reach you. None of my letters will. But writing helps me cope with having joined the Legion. For all the death I have already seen, there are wonders down here, and I wish you could see them. When it's quiet, there are still hints of what the deep roads used to be. Right now I'm sitting under the crumbling statue of a paragon. I asked Dansa if she knew who it was, but the face is cracked. I like to think it's Endrin Stonehammer or Morik the Maul, though I know you favor Asteth the Grey. Back home, I never cared about our history. Remember old Osteg shouting about Orzammar's former glory, naming Tigs he'd never visited and people he'd only read about? I laughed at him, but being down here, seeing what we've lost... These are more than roads, Iora. They connected our empire, let our culture flourish. The stone accepted us, and we lived and moved within her. Now we cling to her like someone drowning. Forgive me. All my letters end the same. Legionnaire Grec. Places. Arbor Wilds. Crucius. For once, look to the elves for guidance. The Dalish shun the Arbor Wilds. When the people who would start a war over a single crumbling wall ignore a large elven ruin to the south, it bodes disaster. There is beauty and curiosity in the forest, such as trees that rise tall as towers, but those who travel too deep into them never return. You asked if I could identify the elven architecture from the few existing sketches of the outer ruins. They have curious similarities to the stonework found in Arlathan, so I would guess it is likely an old elven temple dating 200-300 years before the Imperium. Anything else is conjecture that I fear will spurn you on in this folly. Letter from a scholar of the Tevinter Imperium to Magister Crucius, a mage of high standing who led a doomed expedition into the Arbor Wilds a year afterwards. Resources found here: Elfruit, Arbor Blessing, Velandaris, Stormheart, Silverite. Tales. Dwarven Mugs. Pride of Nulthur. The words "let them eat steak" are etched into the side of this well-worn tankard. Wraithblood. Apparently this mug once belonged to someone named Amron. Brannan's custom mix. The mug bears the inscription 5 minutes here is 15 minutes there. Evered's experience. This cup is cracked. It has clearly seen action and no longer holds ale without leaking. Lost memory. World's best shaper is stamped into the side of this mug in an obnoxious script. Enchanted stein. A rune is attached. On the side opposite, it reads, Bodad and Sons Quality Wares and Enchantments. Sacrificial cup. Those stains don't look like moss wine. Cup of cobalt. A blue substance is caked on the bottom. Cullen might know what it is. Vessel of the Ancients. A forest of mold and rot is growing inside this cup. It clearly has never been washed. Titan's nail. There's an oddly organic quality to this stone cup, as if it were grown and shed rather than carved. The Wellspring. In a time that only the stone remembers, there was a Tig in the deepest caverns, ruled by a wise old king. The riches in the stone had provided well for the Tig. Lyrium flowed like water from the ground. Gold and jewels sprouted from the walls like mushrooms, and the people wanted for nothing. One day the king returned to the stone and left behind 2 sons to vie for his throne. Neither had been named heir, and so each sought to prove to their father's assembly that he was best suited to be king. The first son journeyed far and wide across the deep roads, forging alliances with the other Tigs, and returned home bearing word of the goodwill of distant kingdoms and their promises of future friendship. But the assembly was not impressed with words and promises, and would not name him heir. So the second son mined the ground for wealth. Every last scrap of lyrium, every nugget of gold he dug up and gifted to the Tig. But the assembly, accustomed to abundance, was not impressed. So the second son dug farther and farther into the stone, so far that he broke through to the other side and found the sky, and this he claimed for his Tig, and the assembly named him king. But the assembly wanted him to bring back his treasure for the Tig. The new king climbed down and down the endless mine until he reached the sky, but try as he might, he could not pull the sky up, nor strike it to pieces with his pickaxe. The new king mined out more and more earth, trying to carve a path to the sky, and finally he undermined his Tig so much that the whole kingdom broke loose and fell far, far into the ground and up into the sky. King, assembly, and Tig were never seen again. The King Who Claimed the Sky, from Songs That Only Nugs Can Hear, by Paragon Ebrian. And that is that. Oh, boy. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Be safe. And I'll see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.